Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I am your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my two co-hosts. Number one, Anthony Cervino from the FF Faceoff. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
All right, and of course, we have NFL beat writer Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
All right. There's a football game this weekend. We're going to talk a bit about that a little bit. We're going to talk NFL news also. And first up, Anthony, Dak Prescott still doesn't have a new contract yet. Do you think there's going to be an issue there?
I don't really see an issue. I think Dak, whatever happens, his attitude seems to be, he's a team guy. The agents will work on it. If they tag Dak Prescott, I don't think he's going to hold out. I mean, this season he bet on himself and he lost. Yes, he put up big-time numbers, but his win-loss record didn't match his big-time numbers. So I think if Dak is smart, I might play under the tag and see how this next year goes. I don't know if I'm signing a contract this offseason.
Why not? I mean, you're taking another huge risk if you do this again now.
I think his max value dropped because of the 8-8 season.
I think it did too, but I think this. What's it dropped to after a 5-11 season?
I mean, let's get real here. I think Mike McCarthy is going to have success in Dallas.
I know. He's a great coach. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I would be surprised if Dak Prescott wants to settle for the franchise tag because even though he had a season, that's 2 wins off of what they had in 2018. And statistically, he way outperformed basically every other measure that he had in terms of his career at this point. So from the agent side of view, they're going to point to the numbers and say this was a fantastic season. They're going to try to frame it in a sense that he improved as a player, and they're going to try to leverage that into a large contract. And that's personally, I don't know why you would want to risk it one more year. I say the same thing. If you have a first-round grade and you're going into, and you have a potential to enter the NFL draft, go to the NFL draft. Do not wait that extra year and risk suffering an injury and losing money long term. You have to remember, Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick. He's not this guy who had a first-round contract and made all this money. So if I'm him, I'm trying to cash in this year and sign a large contract.
Yeah, and Anthony, the big thing here is I don't think Dak or you thought they could go 8-8 this year, but they did. And a couple injuries here or there, Amari Cooper goes down or Zeke Elliott goes down, his value could drop.
But, the Cowboys on their side, they also have to be willing to pay Dak, what he's worth. And I don't know if they're going to do that right now. I think Jerry's going to try to leverage the 8-8 season, even though I'm not going to completely put it on Dak.
The game against Philadelphia was not his greatest performance. And basically decided whether you're going to playoffs or not.
Emmitt Smith. Ezekiel Elliott was coming off of a big week. He's had career success against Philly, or, close to 150 total yards or in excess of 150 total yards a game, and they abandoned the run, and this was a one-score ball game for the duration.
But that's my point.
So
they abandoned the run, so how's it not on Dak? Because if you are a guy that thinks you should be paid like an elite quarterback, isn't that the kind of game you win?
You would think so, but I'm not telling you Dak Prescott should be getting paid like an elite quarterback.
Yeah, but Dak Prescott is wanting to be paid like one. Yeah, but Dak wants to be paid like one.
I don't know if Dak – listen, Dak isn't the quarterback who's going to be able to put the team on his back. He needs help.
But see, that's kind of my question, because if he thinks that he should be paid like one that can put him on the back, doesn't that cause a problem here? Because if you're the Cowboys and you all of a sudden blow up and give Dak this huge contract, this could set the franchise back 5 years, if he's not.
which is why I don't know. I think they're going to lowball him a little bit, hope to meet in the middle, and if that doesn't happen, play under the tag.
Yeah, but if you lowball him, then you piss him off.
I think the wise thing to do is you get Amari Cooper signed, because he has said numerous times he wants to be in Dallas. He loves it in Dallas. I think he'll give the team a hometown discount. You get Cooper signed and let Dak play under the tag if he's willing to, and I think he will. I think that's the direction you go.
I don't, but you know that. I would try to upgrade from Amari Cooper. Because if he's your number one guy, you're still never going to win anything. Sam?
Unfortunately, to what? And this isn't a knock on A.J. Green, because I like A.J. Green. But you're going to, what? You abandon Amari Cooper, give A.J. Green the money. At least Amari Cooper plays through the injuries.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but so does A.J. Green. This year, it has nothing to do with an injury.
He's missed, what, 29 games in the past 4 years?
And none of that had anything to do with an injury. I mean, the high ankle sprain, he probably could have played by mid-season, but he was waiting to get paid. And who wants to come back and play on a team that's won 1 or 2 games?
I get what you're saying.
And I also think this. I think that you're delusional if you don't think that A.J. Green is better, even right now after missing that many games, than Amari Cooper.
I think A.J. Green is a lot better. I think A.J. Green, earlier in his career, is as good as a Julio Jones. I mean, A.J. Green was drafted a couple of spots Julio in the same draft. A.J. Green's also, I believe, he might be a couple months younger than him too, but you just can't trust A.J. to stay on the field right now, and that sucks because I like A.J. Green a lot.
Well, it also sucks that you can't trust Amari Cooper to do anything outside of a home game in the middle of the season in Dallas.
I don't
disagree there.
Go ahead, Sam.
Look at the Philadelphia Eagles game in Week 16 when he basically got sidelined towards the end of the game because he had 4 catches for 24 yards for the entire game. The week before that, against the Rams, he had 1 catch for 19 yards. And we go back and against Detroit when they almost lost the game to the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, he had 3 catches for 38 yards. Against the New York Jets when they lost, he had 1 catch for 3 yards. So it's not like he's a consistent performer here. He's not a consistent player you can rely on week to week. He has games where he disappears. I don't know if you want to give him top wide receiver dollars for a guy like that.
Yeah, you can't risk that.
I don't think he's going to cost top receiver dollars.
I bet he does. I don't know any receivers that don't want top wide receiver dollars.
You know, at that point, I would probably pivot and try to trade for Stephon Diggs, who I hear wants out of Minnesota.
That's exactly what I would do. Because
I'd rather
Stephon Diggs is a lot better.
You know, that's the pivot I would make. If it comes down to, you know, having to pay Amari Cooper like Odell Beckham Jr., I would trade for Odell Beckham Jr.
I don't think I would trade for Odell Beckham Jr. because I think
but you know what I mean. But you understand what I mean. I would try to get that top flight receiver if I have to pay that. But if I can get Amari Cooper at a hometown discount, then retain Cooper and put the money somewhere else. You know, maybe upgrade from Randall Cobb, but, you know, Cobb's not going anywhere with McCarthy.
Well, how about this, though? Are you going to really think that your team is upgraded? I mean, can you win the Super Bowl with Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper?
Yes.
You can.
I think the issue where you need to make the upgrades is the back end of that defense. More so the safety and maybe another cornerback.
Yeah, but when your offense is
one
bad.
One player I'm going to let walk, and one player I know Dallas will let walk, is Byron Jones.
Well, I could tell you this, though. When I look at this roster, it takes more than just a back end of a defense to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And, I mean, what quarterback at the level of Dak Prescott's won a Super Bowl?
They had listen. What do you mean with quarterback the level of Dak Prescott has won a Super Bowl?
Yeah. I mean, he's a mediocre quarterback, somewhere between 10 and 15 probably. How many?
About Eli Manning?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Dak Prescott is Eli Manning.
Eli Manning, Jim Plunkett, Trent Dilfer,
What?
Brad Johnson.
No, wait a second. This is the thing. You could give me Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson because that's about where he is.
Joe Flacco?
Joe Flacco, wait a second. What was Joe Flacco's career playoff record? And his stats, touchdowns to interceptions. You can't compare Dak Prescott to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's so much better than Dak Prescott. It's almost humorous you would bring it up.
But you make it seem like you don't need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, you do. The majority of the time you do, because when I ask you to name them, you name me like 8. There's been 54 Super Bowls won.
But I think Dak is good enough with the team around him. Listen, they had
There's not a team around him, though.
Offenses in the league.
No, they
need to
didn't.
Improve the defense.
They did not have a top offense.
Defense.
Jesus,
they need
give me a
interior
break.
Defensive linemen, a couple of defensive backs, and they need some offensive line insurance because they are getting older.
I'm sorry.
They have the skilled position players to get the job done.
They do not. Their offense was not very good this year.
Not in big spots. No, you're right there.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't good against almost any. Tell me a really good defensive team where they went off and just put up a bunch of points.
I don't know if they did.
They didn't. So that tells me that all those stats were against the Miami Dolphins of the world, and I really find it hard to compare Dak Prescott to Joe Flacco. Sam, am I nuts here?
Well, on the point of the offense for Dallas, they scored 35 against the Giants in week 1, 31 against Washington in week 2, 31 against Miami in week 3. But then if you look at teams like against the Saints, they scored 10. Against the Jets, it was 22, and they lost that game. Against the Vikings, 24, and they lost that one. Against the Patriots, 9, they lost. They scored 15 and lost to Buffalo. They scored 24 and lost to Chicago. They scored 9 and lost to Philly in Week 16 and basically lost the division on that one. So this offense cannot perform against good defenses. They can't do it right now. They're definitely missing stuff in that offense because they just can't put the numbers right now. They can score 44 against the Rams or 47 against Washington. That's fine. That's not actually going to make you that's not going to get you into the playoffs. That's not going to get you past the wild card round or the divisional round. So that offense does need to be retooled. And on the comparison to Joe Flacco, Flacco's a little bit different of a person when he gets to the playoffs than he is in the regular season. In the regular season, he's more of like a mediocre. In the regular season,
he's more like Dak Prescott in the regular season.
Yeah, kind of a bit. He's a little bit. He's around that level. But in the playoffs, we know that one incredible run in the 2013 playoffs where he went 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's a little bit different in the playoffs. He's a different beast. I don't think Prescott has that in him right now.
Well, I mean, the other thing about Flacco is the majority of his playoff wins were on the road, Anthony. And he may have had the greatest postseason in 2012 of any quarterback ever.
Yeah, and he may have had the greatest linebacker ever in Ray Lewis.
No, he didn't. That's absolutely – come on. If we're talking about 2007 maybe, 2012 was Ray Lewis's last year. Ray Lewis wasn't even playing that well
Ray Lewis
at that
was
point.
still balling out in his final year.
What do you think you're, Stephen A. Smith?
Scott?
He was balling out? What the hell is that, Stephen? I mean, come on. He was balling out in 2012? When did he ball out in 2012? And Ray Lewis was nowhere near the greatest linebacker that ever lived. He wasn't. There's nobody that compares to Lawrence Taylor. And I know it's the difference between.
But wouldn't you say that Lawrence Taylor's more of the outside edge linebacker?
Yeah, but we're just talking about the greatest linebacker.
When you're comparing middle linebackers, it's Butkus, Singletary, and Lewis.
Dude, really? You're not even going to bring up Jack Lambert?
Okay. I'm just speaking
Brian Urlacher?
in relative terms.
Brian Urlacher was better than Ray Lewis.
Get at what?
Playing linebacker. I watched them both play. And did Butkus, Ray Nitschke, those guys were middle linebackers. Ray Lewis liked to jump around and dance and sing. He was a good linebacker, but I've seen better.
So because Ray Lewis was a showboat, he couldn't play the position.
No, I never said that. I said that because he was a showboat and a look-at-me guy, he got more credit than what he deserved, especially in 2012. In 2012, for the majority of that season, he was a hindrance to that defense. He just was. I mean, that was a great defense without him. But he was a hindrance. I mean, I remember halfway through that season seeing articles where people ask if Ray Lewis should have already retired.
On top of that, he only played 6 games that year. He was hurt for the majority of the regular season.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I don't know what you're talking about. He wasn't even on the field half the time.
Yeah, if you go back and you look at Ray Lewis's stats from 2012, he played 6 games. He had no interceptions. He caused a fumble. He had 1 sack, and he had 40 tackles. I don't think that he was a big reason of why the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Joe Flacco was the reason the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Well, I mean, I don't think you can say that he was still a stud. I mean, he had 40 tackles in 6 games, Anthony. And how about this? I mean, in the playoffs, Ray Lewis played 4 playoff games, including the Super Bowl. He made 28 tackles. And he defensed a pass. So I don't think...
He also recovered a fumble and had 2 sacks. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm looking at the wrong year.
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong year because, I mean, the other thing is this. If you look at 2011, Ray Lewis didn't even make it through the season. He played 12 games and had 72 tackles. I mean, Ray Lewis, I mean, once you get past 2010, was pretty much done.
So you don't think his locker room presence does that not count?
I think this. I don't think it counts. I don't think locker room presence means a damn thing when you've got a team with Terrell Suggs and all these other guys. Ed Reed was on. They had plenty of locker room presence. I mean, hell, that team was a team of veterans that were locker room presence. So I don't think Ray Lewis being on that team mattered either way, except for the fact that it did help when it came to officiating, because you want Ray Lewis to win that last Super Bowl. It's good for it's good for business. And if you look at it, they'll build it up like he had something to do with it, which is why people think he did. But 6 games, 40 tackles, you throw in the 4 playoff games. He played 10 games. He had about 78 tackles, 80 tackles. That's a good player. But it's not Ray Lewis.
He was 37 years old.
You're the one that said that he was the big reason why. It wasn't Joe Flacco. It was because of Ray Lewis.
No, but it's that Ray Lewis and that Baltimore defense.
But it wasn't Ray Lewis and that Baltimore defense. It was that Baltimore defense. And it wasn't that Baltimore defense because that Baltimore defense, what was the final score of that game, Sam?
Of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, wasn't it like 34-30 or something?
It was 34-31.
All right, so it's 34-31. I don't know where the Baltimore defense plays in here. You know, the Baltimore defense, if you remember, to get to this game, didn't Joe Flacco have to throw like a 60-yard touchdown pass to send the game to overtime against Denver? And then he got the ball and he drove down and he scored and they won? I mean, the Baltimore defense was not that great that year. I mean, I don't remember the stats exactly, but
you also look at the 49ers almost won that game. The 49ers had a chance to win that Super Bowl. They just couldn't convert.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they won. It wasn't like Baltimore won the game cleanly. It was close.
Very close. Very close. Because wasn't that the one where didn't they have Kaepernick overthrew the receiver by like a foot in the back corner of the end zone or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I have a hard time saying that it was because of the defense. And actually,
from what I see, they had the 3rd-ranked defense in points for and 3rd in yards.
All right, well, all I know is this. In the
and
playoffs,
they had the 15th in yards in offense and 12th
in defense. Yeah, so what you're telling me is
12th in points.
Okay, 12th in
scored
points scored
for Joe Flacco's offense.
Yeah. So 12th in points scored. What were they in points given up?
Third.
Third. Okay. So when you look at this, number one, the AFC divisional playoff, they won in overtime against the Broncos 38-35. The Super Bowl they won 34-31. It wasn't just the defense. And if you look at this team, did you realize that there was more Pro Bowlers on offense than there was on defense? You only had 2 defensive Pro Bowlers that year, Haloti Ngata and Ed Reed. On offense, you had fullback Vontae Lynch, you had guard Marshall Yanda, and you had running back Ray Rice. So their defense was good that year. But I'm just telling you this, in the playoffs, if it wasn't for Joe Flacco, that defense was not good enough to win it for him. If you'd have put Trent Dilfer on that Ravens team, did they win the Super Bowl?
No.
All right. So
no, because Dilfer won it with one of the best defenses of all time, and I think you're going to argue that 2000 Ravens defense wasn't.
Why would I
one
argue
of the
that?
best.
That is my argument, because you're the one that put Joe Flacco in the same boat with Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson, and I think that is absolutely insane.
But are you going to put Joe Flacco in the same boat as the elites?
No, I'm putting Joe Flacco in a boat above anything Dak Prescott has ever done or ever will do.
I mean, Dak's been in the league 3-4 years now, so let the jury's still out on Dak.
No, I think Dak is a good quarterback. The jury is not still out, because if you were the jury, I'm pretty sure I heard you say that Dak will never be the kind of guy that's going to put your team on the back and take you to the Super Bowl.
No.
Joe Flacco.
He needs help.
Yeah. Well, Joe Flacco, everybody needs help.
But if you give Dak the third-ranked defense like Joe Flacco
Whoa, so
had,
you're telling me, hold on, you're telling me Joe Flacco could have went to Denver, thrown for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and beat that great Bronco defense. That's what you forget. That Denver Bronco defense was great. They were better than Baltimore's. And Joe Flacco went in, put the team on his back, threw for 400 yards, including a game-tying touchdown pass.
Flacco.
I like Flacco.
Flacco.
Don't compare him to guys like
elite.
that. No, he's not elite, but neither is Dak Prescott.
I didn't say Dak was elite.
Well, you put Dak in the same boat as Joe Flacco. You actually, I thought, were trying to make the case that Dak was better.
I think the jury's still out.
Remember in 2012, in that postseason, I think Flacco threw for like 12 touchdowns and no interceptions. Dak ain't ever going to do that. But, all right, let's transition a little bit, and let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers and the way they built this team, Sam. And the thing that I really take away from the way they built this team is Bill Belichick should get a ring if they win.
Yeah, for Jimmy Garoppolo, exactly. I think really that's where this whole thing begins, is when they acquired Jimmy Garoppolo from the Patriots. And we know that Belichick did not want to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. We know he wanted to keep him, not split the Patriots organization. But they traded him to the San Francisco 49ers for a second. They didn't get a first-round pick for it. They got a second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's now leading his team to the Super Bowl at, 28 years old? He just turned 20 a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. So I feel bad for Bill Belichick. He made the right.
Do you really? Because I think Bill Belichick is actually happy this happened, Anthony. I think he could have got a lot more than what he got for him, but I think that he likes Kyle Shanahan, and he sent Garoppolo to San Francisco cheap because he wanted to keep him. He wasn't allowed to keep him. So I think that basically this is him shoving it to Bob Kraft again.
Do you think it's a situation where he sent him to a place where he believed he would thrive and win? Because in the end, Bill Belichick looks like a genius. Like, hey, this is the guy I wanted, and he's winning Super Bowls.
Yeah, and he sent him in a place where he knew with Lynch, that they were going to be able to build a team there that could win quickly. The other thing that's huge here, Sam, is the fact that the best thing to happen to the San Francisco 49ers was Jimmy Garoppolo getting hurt last year.
Yeah, that means they get a higher draft pick because of it. And they end up with a second overall pick, and that pick turns into Nick Bosa, who looks phenomenal for them. And so by basically losing last year, they surprised everyone this year, and they got a better player.
Yeah, and the thing about that is this entire defensive line, this was started in 2017 with the draft. Actually, in 2017, I thought with, who's the guy, Solomon Thomas, I think that they missed pretty bad at the top of that draft. But since then, Anthony, 2018 and 19, Nick Bosa and Mike McGlinchey. The thing I like about that is you're taking offensive line and you're taking defensive line. You've already got your quarterback. So the three most important spots on your team, I think, for being able to win in the long run, they took care of right there.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers have been building towards this for years now, especially that defensive front is loaded with top 10 talent. And, you talk about Nick Bosa. I mean, he could be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, never mind Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's the type of impact he had this season.
Yeah, he could easily win both. The other thing was they got a few bargains here in free agency. One of them was Richard Sherman, who I think fits exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants to do on defense. But the other two guys here, Quan Alexander and Dee Ford, Sam.
Yeah, because Quan Alexander's coming off a year where he did get injured again this year, missed some time, but he came out of a year last year where he missed the majority of the season. He only played 6 games in 2018, and he was a Pro Bowler in 2017. So we knew he had a lot of talent. But if he missed time, he got a cheaper deal. 49ers got him easily. And then Richard Sherman got cut by the Seattle Seahawks after he missed time. People thought he was washed up. People wanted him to be washed up. He negotiated his own contract, which people hated. And he signed a 3-year, $39 million deal. And now, in his second year with the team, he's a second-team All-Pro and is back to being one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So they really made it out there. They also went out and took George Kittle. And I believe that was the 2017 draft when they took Kittle, because you said they missed in the earlier rounds. They did. But Kittle was a 5th-round pick, and now he's arguably the best tight end in the NFL. Yeah,
and not just Kittle. You get Raheem Mostert, who came out of nowhere. I mean, at the start of the year, if you'd have said Tevin Coleman would have had the injury issues and Jerick McKinnon, troublesome knee injuries. But Raheem Mostert has put this over the top, too. So the big thing that I see here, Anthony, was their ability to build depth at all these positions by getting free agents like Usek, the fullback. I mean, they got guys, coming out the wazoo that they picked up late. And then I think the thing that really put this offense over the top was the ability to get Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, that offense drastically changed after the Emmanuel Sanders trade, because they were kind of floating with, Dante Pettis was a 2nd-round pick last year, had a lot of issues this offseason. All the reports were saying that he was going to have to earn his spot. He wasn't having a good offseason, and that translated to the regular season. And Deebo Samuel is still a young guy. And with the addition of Emmanuel Sanders, I think he not only made an impact on the field, but off the field, teaching these young receivers how to be pros. I think that was the biggest impact Emmanuel Sanders made, because I don't think it's a question. Deebo Samuel is the number 1 wide receiver on this team.
Yeah, and I think he will turn out to be a legit number 1 for any team a year or two down the road.
And you're talking about all these running backs. You didn't even mention Matt Breida.
I know.
I mean, that's how much depth this team has.
Well, it's a great thing, and because the great thing about that depth, Sam, is they sustained a ton of injuries this year. I mean, you had at a point where you're missing your center, you're missing both tackles, and you're missing running backs, and they were still able to survive because of the depth that they had accumulated.
Yeah, they had players everywhere for them who were going out this season. We thought this could legitimately hurt their chances down the road. And when you look at what happened, they ended up with the top seed in the NFC because they were able to pull things together. And the guys who were available and healthy stepped up, filled in their roles, and then when the veterans came back and got healthy again, they took over those spots. They maintained consistency throughout the year despite all the injuries, and really never slowed down.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Do you think the fact that they when they initially signed Lynch and Shanahan, that they gave them 6-year deals. How much does that impact your ability to, build a team, knowing that you do have, or you likely have, the stability? You see Gruden getting a 10-year deal. We're seeing, I think another coach, Rule got a pretty long deal in Carolina. And then you see a team like the Browns, who have a new head coach every year. I think at some point you need to let these head coaches know and general managers know, we're going to give you some time to build.
Here's the difference for me between Oakland and San Francisco. I think the only way Oakland was getting John Gruden was to give him a 10-year contract where he was going to make a ton of money no matter what happened. I think at San Francisco, they believed that Lynch and company could get this done if they gave him 6 years. The great thing about giving them 6 years is this. Their first draft was Solomon Thomas. I think they missed on pretty bad. And it didn't affect them because they were still allowed to continue to do what they do. They missed on Thomas, but then you come up with DeForest Buckner. It gave them the ability to miss and still have another opportunity, where in a place like Cleveland, if you miss once, they immediately get rid of you. The difference here is this, though. With Shanahan and Lynch, there's kind of a track record. Everybody knew John Lynch kind of knows what he's doing. Everybody knew Shanahan at least was a good offensive coordinator. Cleveland hires guys like Freddie Kitchens, and you can't give a Freddie Kitchens a 6-year contract because there's not a track record behind him to warrant giving him 6 years and letting him screw up.
But then why make him the head coach at all?
Because they're the Cleveland Browns. And the other problem is this. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm not going to take the Cleveland Browns job. I can do better than that. I mean, you got places like Cleveland and Detroit are places where they basically take what they can get. In San Francisco, I think with ownership and the amount of money there and what they've got going on, I don't think you have to take what you can get. Cleveland and Detroit are kind of two of the graveyards of the NFL. And I hate to say this, but so are Cincinnati and Dallas. Because you're not going to win a Super Bowl there because of the way the organization is run. San Francisco does not have that history. San Francisco, you have a history of a lot of success. And they may have had a couple bad years. But we were just talking about a Super Bowl they were in that was less than a decade ago. So they had success. They played in an NFC Championship game, I think, the year after that, or maybe the year before. But there's not the stigma in San Francisco that there is in Cleveland. I mean, Anthony, if I was to call you out of the blue and say, hey, do you want to go be the head coach or the GM for the Cleveland Browns or the San Francisco 49ers? What are you going to say?
The 49ers.
Yeah, because of the history. You're a Cowboys fan. If I called you and said Cowboys or Niners, unless you're an idiot, you're going to the Niners. You want to go where you can win. And if you go to San Francisco and you're John Lynch, you're going to be allowed to do what you want. If you go to Cleveland or you go to Dallas or Cincinnati or Detroit, you're probably not getting to do that. You can do what you want sometimes, but there's always going to be somebody that takes it away from you. So they gave him a 6-year contract because you're bringing in a GM and you're basically telling him, this is yours. You're making all the decisions. It's on you. If I'm bringing a guy in at Cleveland, well, we got to have meetings every Monday after the games for a couple hours with the owner so you can explain what you're doing. Nobody wants to deal with that crap.
You mentioned the whole Oakland thing with Gruden and having to give him long-term for his payday. I also think that Gruden knows that he's going to gut this whole team, and we saw that with Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper and all of the veterans, and I think he knows it's going to take him time to build, because I do believe John Gruden, he wants to, I don't know if he wants to, kind of rebuild his legacy a little bit.
Well, I think John Gruden wasn't going anywhere about a 10-year contract, though, either way. And he knows he's going to gut the team, but he wants the financial security to know that if he's giving up the, couple $1 million for Monday Night Football, that he's still getting paid 10 years from now. So I think those two kind of go hand in hand. I don't think that Oakland was getting Gruden, no matter what, Sam, without a 10-year contract.
Yeah, because I mean, you got the situation with Monday Night Football where you basically can do a lot less work and get paid a lot of money as well. So you have to lure him away from Monday Night Football. You have to give him something extra.
Yeah, you don't have to do that with Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens will be like, I'll take it. I'll just take it. But,
yeah, they probably didn't even have to tell Freddie how much they were paying him, and he signed.
Yeah.
So now he's tight ends coach in New York.
Well, good for him. He'll have fun there with Jason Garrett, and who's the head coach?
Joe Judge.
That'll be a great thing happening there in New York. But this will also test whether great players can, win even if the coaching is bad, because there's a lot of talent there. But the New York Giants are in trouble because you've also got a young quarterback there, and he's led by a special teams coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, George Allen was a special teams coach. Marv Levy, Bill Cowher, all these guys were special teams coaches.
No?
Huh?
Wasn't John Harbaugh special teams in Philly?
Yeah, at the start of his career. But what I'm talking about is I'm talking about guys that were basically special teams coordinators who became head coaches. There's not as many of them. Because I think Harbaugh, he also went to college and was really successful at Stanford as a head coach. So you had a little bit more of a track record to go off of with John Harbaugh, if you know what I mean. So, all right. The other thing that really impresses me here is just the offensive line and the way they built that offensive line. Because a lot of times, Anthony, you'll see offensive lines that pass block great and can't run block or vice versa. The 49ers O-line surrendered 139 pressures this season, which is the 8th fewest in the NFL. And this is without McGlinchey and Staley for a significant amount of games. And the other thing is this, though. As a run-blocking offensive line, I mean, they averaged 144.1 yards per game. So this is a team where they have built the offensive line. And then the defensive line, you got Bosa, Ford, Armstead, and Buckner, who terrorize opposing offenses. They had 48 sacks this year. Armstead had 10. Bosa had 9. So the thing I take away from this, and the difference I see between this and what John Gruden is doing in Oakland, John Gruden, how about this? I don't think John Gruden was trying so much to blow things up and build it. Because if he was, he probably wouldn't have signed Antonio Brown. And I don't think we would ever see the 49ers do that. I think the 49ers are building this team the way a team's supposed to be built, which is up front on both sides of the ball. Where when you look at Cleveland and Freddie Kitchens and what everybody did there, is they went after skill position players and let guys like Kevin Zeitler go.
I said that immediately. That was my immediate reaction to the Zeitler move. Trading him for Olivier Vernon, a guy who has underperformed since his big year in Miami. I thought that was going to be a move that crippled the Browns, and it did.
Yeah, Sam?
Yeah, I was going to say they go about it all wrong because you can get the flashy players and sell tickets and all that stuff and generate off-season hype. Or you could do what the 49ers did. I mean, it's incredible. They're starting their center right now. Ben Garland is the backup because Weston Richburg was their starter for most of the season. He's on IR right now. And they're running for 200-something yards a game against the Green Bay Packers with a backup center. So I think it's incredible what they've done in terms of the depth, in terms of the scouting, in terms of the player development. Because even a guy like Laken Tomlinson, who's their guard, he was a high draft pick, I'm pretty sure, about the Detroit Lions a while ago, and he didn't work out at all in Detroit. But they come to San Francisco now, and suddenly this offensive line is performing great, and suddenly he's a stable piece of a team that's in the Super Bowl. So what they've done with these players is incredible. And along the defensive line as well, a guy like Eric Armstead, he was not a big sack guy during the first 3-4 years of his career, and he comes out and has 10 sacks this season because they built that defense up so much because they've got guys like D Ford there as well, who's coming off the bench for Nick Bosa. So they've got so many guys that they're just a stable organization, a stable team, and that's something you don't see in Cleveland.
Well, how about this? I think a guy like Laken Tomlinson, the difference between Detroit and San Francisco is just the outside zone blocking scheme that the Niners want to use. I don't think Laken Tomlinson is a guy that's going to go and just move a road grading defensive tackle. But he's a guy who could laterally move, get an angle, and make a block. And the thing about it is, Tomlinson, Mike Person, and Ben Garland, they had Weston Richburg who got hurt, but they've allowed a combined 5 sacks all season. That was a statement for anybody.
Those aren't premier players.
No, but the thing is this. If you take an offensive line and you play to their strengths, all of a sudden they look like premier players, Anthony.
Yeah, and that's what I think Kyle Shanahan does best, that he plays to his team and his personnel strengths. And we don't just see that with the offensive line. We see that with how they use Kyle Juszczyk. And even when George Kittle missed some time, Ross Dwelly, who nobody even heard of, I don't want to say he matched Kittle's production, but if you look fantasy-wise, he kind of matched Kittle's production.
Yeah, but he doesn't, because that's just over a couple games, if you know what I mean. He didn't have to fill in for half a season or anything where people could get a beat on him. I don't think Ross Dwelly is up. I know what you're saying now.
No, but the ability when your stars do miss a game or two to have somebody just step in and they appear not to miss a beat.
Well, how about
that's
this,
special.
though?
That's coaching.
I think this, though. I don't know that, Dwelly being able to step in for 2 or 3 games and doing the same thing, that's impressive. But the thing that impresses me about this team that shows me it is coaching is when a Staley and McGlinchey can miss a month. And even when people have a chance to adjust to them, they're still playing as well. The backups are still playing as well as the starters. I mean, it's one thing to hold out for a week or two here or there. It's another thing, the ability this team has had to replace the center for a few weeks in a row, to replace both tackles, especially Staley, who was out for over a month, and still, a month in, they're still not missing a beat.
Well, that's why they're in the Super Bowl, honestly. They've been able to replace injuries, and there are teams that couldn't do that. I think the Saints got beat up a little bit towards the end of the season. They missed some guys. They couldn't replace injuries. You look at the Eagles. The Eagles got torn apart, basically, and so did the Seattle Seahawks down the stretch, and neither of those teams could recover. So what San Francisco did here is completely different than what we saw from other playoff teams who, frankly, just fell apart.
Well, how about this, though? I don't think the Eagles fell apart, because I think the Eagles sustained probably one of the few teams that sustained more injuries than the 49ers, and they still made the playoffs. Their killer was losing their starting quarterback in that playoff game.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a game they lose 17-9, where if Carson Wentz plays, they probably win the game.
Yeah, I mean they had the ball in scoring position.
Yeah,
especially on that last drive where McCown decided he was going to try to run the ball in.
Yeah, but see, that's also why I think Doug Peterson's so good. Because to me, the better coaches are guys like that. It's Bill Belichick being able to turn Matt Castle into the starting quarterback and going 11-5 with him. It's one thing to do it with Tom Brady. Everybody expects that after a while, but when you can do it with the backup, it's even better. Did we have anything else to discuss today, Anthony?
No, I mean, I think we covered about everything.
Oh, I got one. The New England Patriots have to replace their offensive line coach again, Scarnelli.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and if people think that's not a big deal, just flash back to the year that Denver beat New England in the playoffs. And the reason New England lost is because the offensive line wasn't very good, Sam. And I think this is a huge loss for Belichick.
Yeah, because we've talked about, you hear more about Scarnecki than you would other offensive line coaches and other coordinators and stuff like that, because he's been so good. He's been such a key cornerstone for that team, because they find offensive linemen all the time, and then the lineman will go get some record deal somewhere else, like Trent Brown did when he joined the Oakland Raiders. And then the Patriots are like, all right, we'll put another guy in, and your guy comes in and plays well. They did the same thing with the center. David Andrews got hurt this year, and he missed a significant amount of time. And they put another guy in, and they're fine. I mean, the ability to switch out offensive linemen like that from year to year, from week to week, is super impressive. And, again, it's about the stability of the team, because you build teams from the front back. So for the New England Patriots losing him now at this pivotal point for the franchise, I think that's a huge loss. I think will impact them going forward in the next couple of years.
Yeah, because this is one that after that year, what was it, 2015, Anthony?
I think so.
Yeah, but after that year when they lost him, Belichick went back, begged him to come back, gave him more money than any offensive line coach has ever seen, and the next year they're back in the Super Bowl. They're in the next two Super Bowls. Go ahead.
Do you think this has an impact on the Brady decision? Because I think it might.
I don't. I think Brady's just going to leave. I don't think Brady wants to be there anymore. I don't think it's got to do with this. I don't think it's got anything to do with the people around him. I think Tom Brady has a large ego, as he should. So does Bill Belichick. And I really think these two guys want to see what happens when they're not with each other.
I agree.
Sam?
Yeah, after so long, even like the successful marriages between quarterbacks and coaches kind of grow stale. Like there's a point where you almost win too much, and you want to have that new feeling where you want to be the guy and the only guy or something like that, or you want to be the one who goes and saves someone else and gets the glory and the fame. And I mean, granted, both these guys have egos because they should, because they've won so much, but I feel like they just kind of butted heads too much in the last couple of years.
I think they're both going to find out that they're not near as good without each other.
And that's okay.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because I think what you're going to see with Tom Brady is, the old Johnny Unitas going to the Chargers in 1973. And with Bill Belichick, he'll coach another 10 years. He'll make the playoffs most of those 10 years. But I don't know that you'll ever see another Super Bowl championship there. Especially if he's in New England, because I don't think I don't think either one of them are happy in New England right now. And Robert Kraft has some huge issues.
I think there's been too much conflict internally in the last couple of years for either of their liking, honestly.
Yeah, and I think most of that is caused by Robert Kraft. I mean,
he's been stepping into football issues, and he's been trying to make decisions and impact what Bill Belichick usually likes to do. He's been stepping in, and Brady's been trying to influence Kraft, and that in turn affects Belichick. So there's just a triangle here that's not working out anymore.
Yeah, Robert Kraft is turning into Jerry Jones.
Ooh.
I mean, well, he is, because if you notice, the teams that win, like San Francisco, who's the owner?
Jed York.
Okay. And he does what? He owns the team.
He owns the team.
Yeah.
Writes paychecks.
Yeah, Kansas City was one of the Hunt boys now, Clark or whatever it is, and he just owns the team. And that's the way it's supposed to go. But too many cases it doesn't. All right, guys, tomorrow, we going at 1 o'clock again, guys?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll go 1 o'clock tomorrow, and we will talk about the building of the Kansas City Chiefs under Andy Reid tomorrow. And then Friday at 1 o'clock, we will have our NFL official preview show with me, Sam, Anthony, and legendary 49er, three-time Super Bowl winner, Randy Cross, who will be with us at 1 o'clock. And we will break down the Super Bowl then. You can find Anthony on the FF Face-Off. Where can they follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, and I can be found at all the top social media and podcast platforms.
All right, Sam, where do we find you on Twitter?
You can find me at Sam_Teets33 on Twitter. Post plenty of articles and stats all the time, so feel free to check those out.
All right, guys, and you can follow me at Grueling Truth, and you can come back tomorrow at 1. Saturday at 1, we will also probably do another Super Bowl preview show, won't we, Anthony? We might as well just keep going.
Yeah.
And we may do that from a betting angle and have a couple bookmakers or sports gambling experts on to break down all the stuff that goes on Sunday, including the prop bets that everybody likes, the crazy ones, the ones you ought to jump on. So make sure you check that out also. You can hear all of our podcasts wherever you find podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Sam Teets, Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.